6 o'clock and Steve's gotta get home. Let's see here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and stand for the invocation. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Up at the mic, please, Brett. Thank you. Oh, these mics are nice. I can hear myself.
I hear the echo.
Yeah. Roll call, please.
Present. Here.
Present. Public discussion. Anybody in the audience want to talk about something that is not on the agenda? And one at a time, please. Just form a line. No? Okay. No public discussion. Approval of the minutes of March 14th? Oh,
Move to approve.
I think I need to,
Oh, we gotta do
yeah,
this.
yeah. Who did the second?
Am I the second?
Yeah, you are now.
No, Dean is.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Look underneath.
Oh, they're waiting for Daniel. You're gonna have to put Daniel as absent or something so it goes through. You gonna show just 4-0 and no absence?
Abstain.
Okay.
Abstain.
Approval of the agenda as posted or amended. Anybody want to pull anything? I want to pull 1.4C. With that, do we have approval of the agenda as,
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
okay?
Second.
Okay, approval of the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as amended. Second.
Okay, 1.4C. The reason I wanted to pull this, I don't know if Rick was gonna be here, but I wanted to thank him for the donation, because I think it's always nice to do that. And then there's a $400 logo charge.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Who pays for that?
It'll be absorbed currently through the department budget.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll pay for it,
Thank you, sir.
okay? Okay,
So now do we have to have a motion for that? Or is it
Yes.
just a donation?
well, I pulled
What
it.
he
so-
said about paying for it.
Oh,
Does that affect the motion to approve the item? All right,
okay.
gotcha. Then I'll move to approve the item 1.4C with the addition of the donation from Mayor Westusia. Will that do it?
Okay. Okay, good, there we go. So now we move on to 2A. The resolution allows the city to move from Stage 3 to Stage 2 of the city's drought contingency plan in response to Executive Order N5-23 issued by Governor Gavin Newsom March 24th, 2023.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Steve.
This is in response to the executive order that was issued by the governor on March 24th. It eliminated certain water conservation measures throughout the state. There's quite a bit in his order, and there's only a few specific things that are affecting the city of Ripon directly. So just a brief background, back in July of 2022, the city issued the current resolution that is in place, and that was in response to an executive order that the governor issued at that time. That basically mandated the cities go to their 20% shortage level or stage of their water shortage contingency plan. In doing so, that bumped us down to 2 days a week for watering. And this new order essentially lifts that 20% ban. So there's a couple of significant changes. One is going from 2 days a week watering to 3 days a week watering. The other one is the decorative fountains that we can turn back on over on Oak and the one on Milgio. And then just a minor change with leaks being able to be fixed at 48 hours rather than 24 hours. And then if approved, the staff will send out a nixle. We'll be updating our website, changing our signs, and then sending out another postcard for residents. So, any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions?
I have one. I noticed that the summer watering is going back to 3 days, but the winter watering is staying at 1 day. Why isn't it changing too?
Yeah, so at this time, we are at stage 3 of our water shortage contingency plan. He lifted the 20% ban. That bumps us down to what we're considering as stage 2 of our plan, which is a 5 to 10% reduction. So our stage 2 still has us down at 1 day a week watering in the fall and the winter. Our stage 0, which would be essentially nothing, would allow us to go to 2 days a week in the winter. So we'll wait to hear from the State Water Board or another order that would essentially get us down to that level.
So is the decision or the move from, what'd you say it was, from 3 to 2? Is that based on numbers in his directive, or is that a decision we're making to go to stage 2?
That's the decision that we're making at this time. His number, he basically eliminated the 20%.
So in effect, he went to 0.
Yes, I guess he
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
I'm not making any comment yet.
where we were at in, before the July of 2022 last year, we were at stage 2. And we had been at that level since 2018. At stage 2 of our contingency plan, which was at 5 to 10%. When he went up to 20, we bumped to our stage 3 and then cut that down.
One thing, if I could add, is normally we get guidance. After the governor puts an order like this out, the regulatory folks that we deal with on a staff level will put out their interpretation of the order and what that means. So we haven't seen that yet from them, have we?
No, correct. Yeah, the State Water Board typically does issue their own resolution that follows the governor's executive order. We have not seen that yet. Usually that does help clarify a little bit better.
So we're anticipating it'll be at least this, but it may be better than this.
That's what I was gonna say. We're taking a conservative
Yeah.
approach until we hear more.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
Gary, do you have a question?
Well, we were under, the governor ordered drought policies, I think, was it 2017 or 2018? And so we were under those for several years prior to last year, and then it was an additional cut beyond that, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So we're back to the previous cut that was in existence for 4 or 5 years.
Correct, from 2018 to 2022, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any other questions, comments? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve that.
Second.
Any other discussion? On, what am I saying, all in favor? Dean?
No, I got
Oh, okay. Next,
Wait, you gotta have a roll call.
what?
We're gonna vote?
He got it.
Oh, okay.
Ordinances, 3, this ordinance amends chapter 5.40 licensing and regulations of special events of the Ripon Municipal Code that addresses applicable eligibility and performing general cleanup updates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. Yeah, this is a first reading and introduction of the ordinance for the special events permit. We did actually go through and do a little bit of cleanup and added some additional language into the ordinance to kind of more mimic, I think, the intent of the ordinance, what it always has been over time. So I did kind of outline that in the staff report. I won't go through that in a whole lot of detail, but I know there might be a few questions, so at this point, I'll turn it back over to you and be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I'll start.
All right, there's a lot there.
What generated the interest in this particular ordinance?
Amending it?
Yeah,
Just some special events that have come to town that take quite a bit of staff time and need a lot of staff time to process, and we just don't have the personnel or the staffing to do some of that. And it was for some for-profit businesses in town. We really don't have the facilities for it. We don't have the personnel to manage it, which is typically over weekends. And there does need, these things do need some oversight to make sure they are following the rules and regulations that are put in place. So that's kind of what triggered the looking into the ordinance and making an amendment to it.
couldn't we generate a fee structure or something to cover that?
We could look into that. Typically, what you're seeing these more for-profit events go into is more fairground type venues where the sites are fully developed. They're paved sites. They're set up with storm drainage, restroom facilities, and the whole gamut of things to host events like this, not just vacant property like we seem to have. So we don't really have a venue to host events like that. And over the past years, we've had some different issues with it. Obviously, we've had to deal with stuff with the rain and stuff with stormwater and stuff for the equipment sales that have gone on here in town just right prior to the Almond Blossom Festival. So there's a little bit of work that has to be done typically, or sometimes that we end up getting stuck with on these things. And also trying to manage it throughout the weekend. Some of these events don't necessarily follow the rules and regulations that they've put in place that they say they're going to agree to. So you do need some oversight of these things, and we just don't have the personnel really to go do these things without putting a fee structure in place to cover that.
That particular one, they moved to the county, right?
No, this last year they were still in city limits, right by Flying J there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way I read this, Kenny, was, I thought this was primarily a response to that event, the auction.
Yeah, and there's just other events that could possibly come to town that we would be under the same type of venue or same type of event permitting, which could be flea markets, rummage type sales, those type of events, gun shows, that we just don't have the facilities to host those things, and just going on vacant, undeveloped properties does pose some issues with us. I mean, we typically, when we hit development projects coming in, they gotta put construction entrances in and stuff, so they're not tracking dirt out from the site, and these events don't ever really do that. So, there's a lot more to putting one of these events together if we're gonna kinda keep going down that path.
Can they do it on private property?
Not the way we've structured it. We've kind of structured it, kind of getting back to what we felt the original intent of the special events was to be able for local Ripon businesses to be able to host events here in town at different levels, like you see in one here in town with the farmers market. It's a great event for the community. It's a local nonprofit that hosts that. Main Street Day, all those type of events are stuff that I think the original intent was. It wasn't for for-profit businesses to come in and use vacant land in the city to put a big chunk of money in their pocket and really pay not a whole lot of revenue to the city as far as the permit's concerned.
All right, I got this is mainly so I understand it. Let's assume, I don't know exactly what the name of it is, but let's assume that Sacramento soccer team wanted to come to Ripon and have a soccer tournament of semi-professional teams, and they were gonna use Ripon Christian and Ripon High School's stadiums. Could they do that?
Well, typically that stuff would fall under more of the Parks and Rec, renting like the Midland Sports Park. Have you ever used?
No, but they're not using our stuff, they're using public, they're using
If they were,
private property in a sense.
Yeah.
Could they do it?
if they were supported by Ripon Christian,
No.
No, just
Don't,
pri- it's private
don't,
property.
it's,
Private
it's a
property.
it's a professional, private business
I
who
would
has come to town and is going to use 2 sets of facilities. They're gonna charge the entrance, they're gonna keep the money, and they're going back to Sacramento when it's over.
Yeah, those, we would, typically, that wouldn't even really fall under special events the way it's structured now, so it wouldn't even go through that permit process. I really don't know how to answer that question. Probably they would just work with the school
wouldn't we
districts on it.
have fee charges for that get our money?
We don't, like school districts, well, just for instance, a better example, Councilmember Zuber is, the Ripon Chiefs and say the Ripon Knights football programs, they rent facilities from
But
the
see,
schools.
it's not the same, that's a local, I'm trying to get a handle on the outside of city businesses, that this basically is designed to keep them away.
But I don't know where we would come in as a regulator if the Ripon Christian School District or Ripon Unified School District rented out one of their facilities to whoever they chose to. I don't think we have anything in our code that would bring them to the city for any sort of approval for that.
But if the San Francisco Giants wanted to come to town and put on a minor league baseball tournament at Stouffer Park, the answer would automatically be no.
They would go through, that would not be a special event permit, right? That would be a park rental? So that's a developed park, a park developed to host those kind of events. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't differentiate between nonprofits, residents.
So this is designed to keep somebody who owned 40 acres in town from putting 2 baseball fields out there so the Giants could play there. They would have to play on our stuff or they couldn't come here at all.
They could play at the high school.
If there was a person in town who owned 20 acres of undeveloped property, and they decided that they were gonna build 2 baseball fields, temporary, but they were gonna do it, so that the Giants could bring 4 minor league teams here and have a tournament, the answer would be no.
They would have to go through the development process to be able to do that. Through the planning department and the development process to be able to develop those fields and host those kind of events.
Okay.
So what, okay, then let me ask this, what does this eliminate then?
It pretty much eliminates a for-profit business from coming in and renting vacant, undeveloped land here in town and hosting events for a for-profit, where the city has a lot of resources expended on it, and we basically have an application fee of anywhere from $200 some to maybe $1,000 for a special events permit application.
But Kevin just said though, if they wanted to do what Leo said, they'd come see you.
No, because mine, they would have to quote-unquote develop the property in order
Oh,
for the
okay.
games to be
I
played,
got you.
whereas the other guy would just come in,
It's
park
already
his
there.
stuff and do it.
Do you have a flow chart?
So this was my question to Kenny, not quite along your line, Leo, but if the city, if these properties exist and a private entity wants to make use of them, why can't the city price a fee, which we cover all our costs and maybe a little bit more to make sure we really cover all our costs? If they want to pay that, personally, I think that is probably okay, but the rebuttal, well, you can share your rebuttal, which is the city, that's not really kind of what the city is in business to do.
Right, I think it gets down to a policy decision of the council, if that's what you want staff to be doing, is managing events like this and hosting events like this on undeveloped property where we have to spend a lot of time. And like I said, then there's resources having to go do it. You know, just as a recent example, the equipment sale that happened here in town, the equipment auction, they ended up negotiating with the private property owner, had a parking plan and everything in place. So the day of the event was on the weekend. There's not anybody really overseeing the event at this time. They start parking across the street. People start parking across the street in a vacant orchard and traveling across Jacktown Road, which is unsafe. And they're also tracking dirt and mud out into the roads. The people running the auction should be dealing with this, but they're not. And so these are the things that we have to have in place to be able to deal with events like this, and it really gets down to policy decision, if that's what the council wants to
But
see.
if the business that was going to do that was a ripping business, they could do it.
Not on undeveloped property.
And that was, if I could just add one thing, I agree with everything Ken said, but to answer the question of Councilmember Barton, you know, I think one of the things we're trying to do is be on the same page, the city and municipal land having the same set of rules as anybody private who owns property. They can't go and do an event like this, a special event, like we talked about, without it being developed property. The city should fall under the same rules.
Okay, that's an important.
But couldn't conceivably there be some developed property that could host the event and we would still have the problem of people parking where they shouldn't and walking where they shouldn't and behaving the way they shouldn't?
So
I'm
develop.
not getting it.
Yeah, so developed property, and going through the special event permit, that would be I mean, we deal with this with the farmer's market and parking issues. That property in itself doesn't have enough parking. So they have worked with the Ace Shopping Center to provide the parking for it. So it gives us an opportunity to put conditions on those special events to make sure they comply with those. So we do deal with it with developed properties.
But can't we put conditions on it? The only difference between the two is one piece of property is developed and one piece of property is undeveloped. Can't we still, how does the fact that it's undeveloped keep us from putting conditions on
And
it?
I think, one part of it is developed property. We can put conditions on that, but I think it's a policy issue for the council of for-profit companies coming in and using developed properties that aren't intended for a certain use for that use. For example, like at Ace Hardware, it's a policy of the council. Can a for-profit company come in there and do a weekend flea market type rummage sale or something like that? Is that
If
acceptable?
that's developed property.
It's developed property. That's where it comes down to a policy issue of the city council. Do you want to allow those type of entities to come in, out of city entities to come in and hold those kind of events? I think from
So
our
far, we're
perspective,
talking about one.
no, I think this just makes you realize that there's a lot of opportunities for different.
Well, but so far, we've only had one take advantage of the opportunity. It's not like we're being overrun or that the exposure that we're talking about, A, is large, and B, that the impact, whatever it might be, for one time, couldn't be mitigated like Mr. Barton was suggesting.
I think from my perspective, I think just having the same set of rules as a private property owner is important. So developed property, I think we could structure the ordinance to do that. It's a policy decision at that point with the council, if you do want to allow out-of-city for-profit businesses to come in and have these kind of opportunities on any developed property.
In-town businesses can do this on undeveloped property?
Well, that's what's being proposed, is city businesses can have special events
On undeveloped property?
No, undeveloped
Because
property.
the issue is, that to me, it's not whether they're in town or out of town, it's developed versus undeveloped property.
What's that? Yeah, so there is actually language in there, all these special events have to be hosted on developed properties.
And see, that, to me, that's the issue for me, not whether they're in town or out of town. It's whether we're going to force people in town to have all their events on whatever the definition of developed property is. I have a concern about that. I do, especially since we're talking about one incident a year at this point. That's, I'd rather see this thing redone to somehow get a handle on what we're gonna do about that one incident rather than just say we're shutting it off.
So the other I think thing to throw out for special events is it's kind of a perk for Ripon businesses and nonprofits here in town. Be able to host events, host social gatherings. You saw one down here at the doctor's office when they had their grand opening. The Hot Wheel Place does some events here in the parking lot. You've got, First Responders Day is a special events permit. Those are all like community-based events. So those are things that's a perk, and it's not necessarily we charge a high enough fee to really deal with some of that, but they're not that big of issues. If you're trying to structure a fee to recoup costs on these things, are we gonna pass that fee on to then Ripon businesses and Ripon non-profit organizations too? Because these special events permits are gonna become
Yeah, but
a
Ken,
lot more in depth.
I understand that, but what I hear you saying when you ask that question, we're not talking about in town versus out of town. We're talking about developed versus undeveloped property. I have no problem if the Lions Club wants to put something on 10 acres of undeveloped property that it's gonna cost them more than if they put it on at the community center. I don't have a problem with that. My concern is that we're telling them they can't do it. That's all.
Isn't the concern, from a staff standpoint also though, so I get this, there we go. Undeveloped land, you don't have driveway access. A developed parcel, you'll know where to enter and exit for parking and entering and exit the property. With undeveloped property, they're jumping, there's multiple places to get onto the property. It's wherever you can get your car in. And if it's wet, God help us if it's wet the week before. You got mud everywhere. So that's why developed parcels make more sense.
Let's take the Almond Blossom parking as a perfect example.
If you have enough area and you have enough people that are helping to assist
But
putting people in parking spaces.
I could see the argument being extended that they can't use that property to park anymore because it's quote-unquote undeveloped. And it is undeveloped, let's face it.
Yeah, and that one is an exception and is written into our municipal code as an exception. But the one thing I would add is they use the entire park and they have ADA access, people to park. They have a certain amount of the infrastructure that we have in place that they're able to use as part of that festival as well. If a event is going 100% on undeveloped property, they don't have the benefits of the driveways, the stormwater improvements, the ADA access, restrooms, being able to safely conduct an event on.
Can't we make them do it? Before you're gonna permit it, don't they have to be able to show you how they're gonna have access, how they're gonna control access, how they're gonna provide those kinds of facilities? I'm not saying that it's just carte blanche, whether it's developed or undeveloped. If there are concerns about where it's gonna be, then to me, the ordinance ought to say, fine, here's the list of 33 things. You've gotta tell us how you're gonna mitigate all this stuff, or this isn't happening. And if they can't, problem solved.
Yeah, it's hard to answer that question with all the what ifs and the different types of scenarios, but it is a challenge for someone to come in and do a weekend-long event and try to comply with all the different requirements that would be there.
Well, I understand it, but as you can tell, I have a problem with this whole concept.
Hey, Kelly? Yeah, I know. Do you have any opinion on this?
She doesn't care.
So we're good. So the answer is no. Do we give her a mic?
Okay.
Well, I mean, you may need it for the minutes. Never mind, too late.
I guess, I mean, for me, to a certain extent, I mean, I get the idea of, you know, ripping businesses, nonprofits, like, I guess the concept of maybe, you know, benefit to the community is the, idea behind allowing some of them and maybe not allowing others, and I think, you know, maybe the event that spurred this particular discussion, was tens of thousands of dollars come back from that event through the donations to our 4-H and FFA programs, and, you know, I think there's a long history of that particular event being valuable to the community beyond maybe what people see and what even we as a city see. So I don't know how you capture that in an ordinance, but maybe that's some of the difficulties of this, but I think we need to
Well,
sort through those details before we just, you know, sort of wipe it all away or make it so difficult that never happens either.
yeah, and Leo brought that up earlier. I mean, there's really only one of these events that we're talking about. They aren't lining up around the block to do this. I understand the tension. I guess this
It's an
is,
equipment sale that they have.
is this an example of one where there's an opportunity for Ripon to have something that is different for developed property and undeveloped property, and just design a set of regulations and fees around the undeveloped part that would make it work for the city? I understand they aren't equal. There will be still some things that will happen, you know, if it's a rainy weekend, other things that are not gonna be pleasant. There may be cleanup, but if you design a fee structure, hopefully you're able to capture all those costs within that. And then, you know, maybe, I don't know, some of these businesses, for-profit businesses that might be interested in doing this, just because they're for-profit doesn't mean they don't have a benefit to the city. And we can decide that. I mean, no, I'm not advocating for a flea market. But there are other kinds of uses that may work.
Yeah, so for staff though, that's where the difficulty lies, is in deciding who's gonna compete with our business, who's gonna make it worse for our businesses. You know, what if somebody, and we just opened up a new RV dealership in town, what if a for-profit RV dealership wanted to go on undeveloped land and do an event? I have a feeling that the people that went through our planning process and our improvement standards, our conditions of approval, all of that would not take too kindly to that.
But they could do it on developed property.
If they're,
So that,
well, in this, if they're a local business.
If they're, yeah.
What I would like is to put this off, and I would like the staff to come back with a better picture of what all of this extra effort and cost looks like. Rather than I sit here and say A, you come back with B that's no. I say B, you come back with C, no. Take some time and lay it out, exactly what it is that the problems are that you see and why mitigation would be problematic. Does that make sense?
yeah, there's no rush on this, so there's no
Right.
reason that we can't make it palatable. Sounds like there's enough discussion that it's not.
Yeah, we could bring something.
All right. Okay? Okay, so that's 3A. Now we move on to 3B. This is second reading, so it should go a little bit quicker. The amendment to Chapter 8.12 Garbage Collection Disposal of Ripon Municipal Code includes clarification of permitted hauler business operations, customer monthly rates, and the penalty structure.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yep, this is the second reading and adoption. There were no changes to the first reading and introduction. Minor adjustments, allowing staff clarification on our customer monthly rates, cleaning up the permitted hauler business operations, and then our penalty structure. Yeah, any questions, and I'd be happy to answer.
So if we didn't like it the first time, we may want to discuss it.
Yeah.
Any comments?
I have a question, but it's indirectly, so I'm gonna first of all move, this one, what are we doing? Waive the second reading and
Make
adopt
Lisa
the
read it and adopt it
the-
afterwards.
That's my motion.
Okay, so we're gonna waive the second reading and adopt the ordinance. Okay. Discussion items,
Wait,
congestion.
I got one thing.
Oh, sure.
Do we have any idea when Ripon is gonna start moving towards the 1383 stuff? Because, I mean, we're starting to read about Manteca and Modesto and other towns that are starting to talk about the changes that are coming. Do we have any idea when it might start happening here?
We did phase two, right? So now we're going, thought you were talking about like the third
Yeah.
phase, whatever.
Yeah, we're looking at July, in the July timeframe, but I was gonna give a quick update at the end of this, but we are working on a revised cost analysis. We've got some more detailed information from the different organizations that are accepting this material. So what I'd like to do, or we'd like to do, is come back to the council, show those different options that the city can go into to be in compliance with CalRecycle. We've been working with CalRecycle. CalRecycle is aware of where we're at in the process. So that'll be coming to you guys shortly, so we can kind of show you what that means, and then what it means to the ratepayers down the road.
Thank you.
then move
And you're
forward.
talking about implementing in July, so we'll have a third can?
Well, no,
Maybe.
yeah,
I
well,
mean, potentially,
yeah,
yeah.
let me come back with that cost analysis
I wanna know
and that
now.
structure to show, show you guys.
I'm kidding, okay. Anything else?
Nope, thank you.
4A, authorize staff to complete the congestion mitigation and air quality program application for the solar EV charging station project and CNG garbage truck purchase.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the call for projects was just released on Friday for the CMAQ program. And this program is intended to help effectively improve our air quality. And so there's a pretty limited
Theory.
type of project that is, that qualifies. And so some examples of that would be replacing gas or diesel fueled buses, sweepers, garbage trucks. Other examples would be transit service improvements and traffic flow improvements. And this is a competitive program, and so we'll be up, our projects will be up against any other projects in the county that would qualify. And so how the projects are evaluated is it looks at how cost effective it is at reducing pollutants in the air. And so I looked at projects that did well in the past and projects that the city has done in the past as well. And my two recommendations are, one, to do solar EV charging stations, mostly because we know that EV or electric vehicles are going to be required for us very soon. And so rather than having to front that cost ourselves, it's a project that scored the best last cycle. And so I think that we can get some significant funds to do that now. And then the other project I'm recommending is for a CNG garbage truck, which for that one, I'm only recommending we ask for 30% funding because it's not gonna score super well, but 30% funds is better than no funds since we will need a garbage truck, I think, relatively soon. Yeah, relatively soon. So just trying to plan ahead for what the city might need when we're looking at how to apply for these CMAQ funds.
Who does the scoring?
So we will, in our application, fill out a little sheet that will give us our score. And
Who
then
reviews the scores?
SJ Cog.
He just left.
Yeah.
What are we talking about cost here on this, garbage truck?
The estimate is 500,000.
Holy
Crap.
moly.
And a regular
We're gonna
garbage
get
truck's about
30,000
3-something?
of it? That's not too good.
Now we get 150.
Yeah, we get
Yeah, only
150,000.
30%.
Yeah.
So what does a normal garbage truck cost, like $3.50?
We run CNG garbage trucks, so that's our normal garbage truck.
Yeah.
That's the normal rate right now. Our last one that we just, ordered in January was $4.86.
Oh, okay.
Will this garbage truck run itself? For half a minute?
And the EV charging, that is for city vehicles? It would be our EV charging?
Exclusively, yeah.
Okay.
You put it over where the gas pumps are?
We're looking at putting them at the courtyard or the new courtyard.
Yeah,
Put 'em where the
yeah,
vehicles-
that's what I
Then-
meant, I said gas station.
Yeah,
No.
so right by, yeah, and then also, yeah, in the parking lot
So
here.
Chief can plug in his car?
Yeah, for sure.
Tell him to wait, I'll be there in a few minutes, I got a supercharge on.
Hours, a few hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for this, I'm looking for direction if we want to apply for one or both of the projects.
Go for it.
Yep, I'm in favor of moving forward with that. I'll make a motion to that effect if that's required.
I'll second.
Five oh. K. B, Police Academy Cadet reimbursement. Approve and authorize the police chief to reimburse up to $5,000 per Police Academy cadet hire for Police Academy tuition assistance or other related expenses.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Honorable City Council, this is a discussion action item in front of you tonight for a staffing request to approve and authorize the Office of the Chief of Police to reimburse up to $5,000 per Police Academy cadet hire for Police Academy tuition assistance or other Police Academy-related expenses. Staff has surveyed other agencies to get a better understanding of the benefits being offered to police officer cadets. Those benefits are included in your staff report, and we can review if you so choose. With that information, staff has discussed potential options with the city attorney and found that reimbursement contracts and other repayment options by the cadet should they ultimately rescind his or her acceptance to work for the City of Ripon Police Department after accepting a conditional job offer, were difficult to enforce and are not typical in the industry. But at this point in time, if the council wishes to move forward with an employment contract to be able to access those funds, we can move forward with your direction.
I have comments, but I'll let everybody else talk first if they want.
See, it's a no-brainer, let's do it.
So here's my comments. The other world out there does require a certain period of time to be employed. I mean, in my world, bankers are getting $100,000 signing bonuses all day long because they're so hard to find, but there's a period of time they need to meet before, I mean, I don't know what the period of time is, but I know there's a period of time, otherwise they pay some of it back. We do it at RTD with the mechanics. We send them through kind of the schooling and they have to pay back. I know last time I said 3 years or something, it's too long. But I think it ought to be some period, it's taxpayer dollars. We ought to be able to earn back some of that money that we gave them. I know they're not gonna come in, I mean, if you're in banking, you can get a $100,000 bonus and quit and next day making, I mean, you can make $2 million just moving around. And that'll be fine, unless you have something to keep you there. Employment contracts are very easy to put together, very easy to be able to enforce. We're doing it now, so it can be done. But I think there ought to be some period of time that they need to make a commitment, otherwise they pay us back. Or otherwise they keep it if they go beyond that.
The only comment I have based on the discussion last month, Officer A could get this amount because he or she is 3/4 of the way through the schooling. Officer B could get a different amount because he or she just started yesterday and is gonna have more expenses. And going back to the discussion about developed versus undeveloped property, all that time and bookkeeping falls on us. To me, we're either gonna pay them for finishing school or we're not. I don't have a problem with what Mike's saying, but this idea that the amount can vary and stuff, I'm not sure that's gonna be attractive versus if there is an amount that is associated with going to the academy, then fine, give it to them. Don't spend a lot of time figuring out how much of it they're really gonna need. Just let them have it so that they can finish school and we can have them come to work for us. That's the only thing
No, that's a good point.
I'm
What
thinking
does an
about.
academy cost, generally, the expenses for that?
More than 5,000, I think.
Yeah, it'll be typically right around that $5,000.
Well, I think what you're saying is make it simple, make the signing bonus $5,000. Is that what you're saying?
if part of their employment requires that they finish the school.
Yes,
If you've got
exactly.
somebody coming in here who's been on the force in Stockton for 3 years and is no, that's not
No,
what this is
exactly,
about.
exactly.
This is because this person needs the money to finish the education that has to be done for
Correct.
them to come to work for us.
Correct.
And
But the idea that we start getting down into this one's 1,200,
Give me your
this one's
rece- give me your
3,200.
receipts.
Yeah, you know.
And the thought behind that was because it can vary on cost depending on when you offer a conditional job offer to the police academy cadet. Recently, it's been towards the end of the academy, where usually there have expenses with emergency vehicle operations and their final range day, which is supplying ammunition and so forth. So the cost is much less than the entire academy. But we can move forward at your discretion.
But if you make it 5 and you give them a period of time, they have to earn it off, basically, it doesn't matter what the amount is.
Yeah, and if they've incurred the cost
Yeah, just because they're-
anyway,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they had to pay for it. either way.
yeah, they would have had it, they're asking us for less, but they've already fronted it themselves.
So.
That's simple, for $5,000, that's a simple way to do it.
So I agree the idea of earn it off, but does that tie your hands at all, chief? In other words, you hire somebody, 3 months into it, you realize this was a bad hire, but they've got to earn that off over a period of, I don't know, a year. Does that mean you're gonna go, well, gee, I guess, so I don't have to pay that, or yeah.
it's not worth it.
So I don't think it would tie our hands necessarily, but we may have some fallout if the staff member decides that this isn't the right fit for them and they want to leave, but they have an obligation that they have to repay, so they're not gonna leave. We're still required to train and deal with the ineffectiveness that may lead a non-motivated employee, which could eventually lead to termination. But you still have to deal with that, and I don't know if it would open us up for liability contestations afterwards either. But there could be some potential problems.
Gary, I was talking to Chief about 90 days or
Yeah, so
something.
we even
Some-
make it 30 days.
Because you divide 5,000 by 3, it's 1,300, whatever the heck that is, 1,600. I mean, they can earn that off each month anyway, so but it gives a little bit of a commitment on their end because we're spending taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
Do we know, I mean, you see on the news now, I mean, lots of cities are giving signing bonuses. Has anybody checked to see if any of those are earn-offs, or is it just you signed up to be, and here's your 20 grand, and that's the end of it?
It's a mixed bag.
Okay,
Some of them do, some of them don't.
because I'm leaning towards either an extremely short period or no period. I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
it's a big part of me says, that man right there and the people that he uses to interview the people have done a pretty darn good job of picking people to come to work for us. And if he needs a tool like a $5,000 bonus to get him here, I'm good with that. I am.
I agree. Well, and I-
Because I want to help him. I don't want his job and your job that much harder because we stuck this out there.
And that's a good point. And, you know, it's a two-way street when we hire employees. You could get an employee who come here who's never worked for a police department and within 60 days, pretty quickly say, did not meet my expectations. This is not what I was expecting. We would like to have that honest conversation as early as possible, rather than getting them through a period of time before they don't have to pay back the money. And we've invested all the time and effort it is into training that employee. I'd rather know that conversation as early as possible and be able to go hire a new employee and start that training process.
Well, and that's why I'm saying there should be a period of time. It shouldn't be a long period.
Okay.
And I just want to, I'm sorry, if I could just clarify one point with this. Are we talking about an employee that has already accepted a letter of recommendation through the academy? We are able to reimburse expenses throughout the academy for that employee, up to $5,000. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
I think you have to, because sometimes they don't have the money themselves. I don't want them to borrow on a credit card or something like that.
Yep.
So Chief, if we had a vesting period, a buy-in period, do you have a recommendation on what the length of that should be?
In my gut, I say that should be about 6 months. If you're investing that type of money, I believe it would be 6 months. I would like to make it shorter, but I don't feel comfortable recommending that.
Okay?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you did it shorter or didn't do it at all, you give the person, especially if you're gonna front them, if we're gonna go with, okay, just give them $5,000 once they accept an offer, they go through the program and on day one, they say, oh, sorry, I took an offer somewhere else, and you've got no way to get the money
That was
back.
my concern.
Like, you gotta, they have to have some commitment to continuing employment if you're gonna give them $5,000 or any amount of money.
And what I was explaining to the chief was, he does a very good job of hiring. I don't even see this being an issue, but I think from our standpoint, managing taxpayer money, we ought to put something in place. It probably would never have to even get there.
Yeah. Well, how long is the typical probation period for an officer?
18 months.
Yeah, so, I mean, 6 months isn't unreasonable to expect them
Well,
to be
and-
here that long to.
We meet every month, so if we put a couple of these in place and it ends up not working, there's nothing to keep us from coming back and saying, whoops,
That's true.
let's
That's true.
reevaluate just what we're doing here.
That's true.
Full
done.
5,000?
And if we
6
have to,
months.
if we have to call a special meeting, we'll even do that.
Darn it!
Okay, so does somebody want to make a
I'll
motion?
make a motion that we accept Chief's idea.
No, we've changed Chief's
We've
idea.
changed it. We've changed it. His new idea is old idea.
I fell asleep during the
Okay, so
discussion.
why don't somebody else
I'll
make
make
a motion?
I'll move that we implement a $5,000 bonus for applicants that are involved with the
Academy.
police academy at the time of employment, and that they, in order to retain the 5,000, they must be employed by the city of Ripon for at least 6 months. Is that what
Second.
we decided?
That is, I believe. Second.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, may I ask one point of clarification? When we started this process, we had a current employee that was going through the police academy that was requesting assistance. Would we be able to use
Yes.
this funds for that employee?
I would, my comment would be yes.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
effective today, so. Yep.
Will that work? Effective today, or does it have to be effective yesterday?
He started with us on the 5th.
Well, that was the date we were thinking of.
Effective April 4th, there you go.
Thank you.
Is that the one you're pinning tomorrow? Okay. Is that what, is that what you need, chief? Is this good?
You get a big check?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, forget the pen, give me the check. Okay, 4C, League of Cal Cities response to requests for letters of support. The Legislative Response Committee, which is Dan and I, are recommending the city council authorize the mayor to send a letter to the Cal Cities legislative representative requesting the city not be included on future correspondence without concurrence from the city administrator that the city is in fact in support of the Cal Cities position. Kevin?
Yeah, I'm happy to introduce this item, and then if anyone from the committee has anything to add, please do so. But normally, we receive quite a few requests from different entities in support of legislation. Normally, there's a fairly short turnaround time in doing that. So I detailed the process of what we normally go through and how we notify council of that process that we go through. But like I said, it's a short turnaround time, so I emailed the council letting them know that we are preparing that letter of support from the mayor. If there's any concerns from a council member, we hold off moving forward with that. And essentially at that point, the council member could choose to add it to an upcoming agenda to discuss it. or request a special meeting to discuss it through our process of adding items to the agenda. So that's what we normally go through, has worked fine. There was a scenario that came up recently with Cal Cities, where they sent a request out and they said that all cities are automatically on the letter unless you notify them in writing that you do not want to be part of that letter. So the mayor requested the legislative response committee meet and discuss how to move forward with that. And after some discussion, the committee recommended what is in front of the city council tonight. So happy to answer any questions.
Well, the reason I did that is because a lot of times they send out letters that we just don't agree with, and we don't want to be on there, so we'd rather not be. I can defend myself not being on, and somebody say, why didn't you support it? Well, I do support it, rather than being on there and saying, why did you support that bad thing, and saying, well, we didn't, well, your name's on there, so that's it, really.
Nope.
I agree with that
I agree with,
wholeheartedly.
yep.
Okay, all right.
Ridiculous.
So you need direction, or you actually need a, do you need a
Need a
vote?
motion?
Do you need a vote?
No, just direction. Yeah, direction.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, it looks like everybody's okay with it. Thanks, Kevin. Okay. Department heads.
Mr. Mayor, Honorable City Council member of the public, thank you.
Member.
Just two quick things. First of all, I wanted to thank the First Responder Appreciation Board for the event that they held last Saturday.
Yeah, the first,
Two Saturdays.
yeah.
And also the number of community members that were not able to attend and that attended that both continue to support us. Just thank you. The second item is tomorrow at 1 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. We will be doing an introduction, a swearing in, and a promotion ceremony for 3 members of our agency. The public is welcome.
Thanks, Chief. Yeah, we, just to add to that, we had about 250 people at the event. So, thank you, everybody, for turning out. Kai? Nothing to report. Nothing? Can you turn your mic on? I'm kidding. Ken? Nothing. Mr. Peace?
Yes, real quick, the water usage for March, we were down 50% from our 2013 numbers and 45% from 2022. Obviously, we had a really wet March, and people were not using water very much. And another, real quick, we are beginning our large item pickup program. So April through September, residents can call into the Public Works Department or go online and fill out their form to have 4 items taken from their residence. So
When does that start, did you say?
it started April 1st.
Oh.
It runs through September.
What about yard waste? I've had a couple people ask about that.
Yeah.
Yard
Can they
waste.
put,
Cut trees down.
cut
and stuff
trees
like that.
down and stuff and put it out? A couple
I,
people have already done it, but
there's a certain stump size, I don't have that off the top of my head.
Well, it's large items, it's gotta be a large trunk.
Yeah,
But if they cut a tree down or a bunch of shrubs or something like that, can they put it out there like they can in October to January? That's what they,
no, I don't believe so.
okay. I'm gonna tell them to call
We
you.
have a separate, if you have brush pickup like that, yeah, you could call in and there is a fee.
Okay,
We can charge a
Learn those
charged
all the
pickup.
time.
so just tell them to call City Hall and you guys will straighten
Call,
them out.
call Public Works Department, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
1-800-Manteca. Christiana, do you have anything to report? Tom?
I have no report.
Nothing? Kevin?
Nothing to report?
Nothing. Councilmember Barton? No? Councilman?
Do you have a planning commission meeting coming next month?
We do not, actually. The one item that we were gonna have on next Monday, has been postponed.
Okay. Very good. Just wanted to say thank you for, the First Responders Day. That was a fun event. Appreciate the organization on that. Love to see our community turn out for those kinds of things. Thank you, Kelly, Steve, who was here earlier. Grateful to be here tonight.
Councilman DeGraff?
Yeah, nothing really to report, other than thank you to the member of the public there. Yeah, Steve was here. I don't know if anybody was here earlier. And then the member of the press too, can't forget about the press. Very important part of, society, so, thank you. That's it.
That's it? Councilman
Nothing
Euchre?
to report.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Vice Mayor. I have one thing to report. There's been some concern from people about, I want to say this cautiously, about the FBI and raids and things like that. And so, a friend of mine's the special agent in charge here at Ripon, Gary Hart. And so, I asked him if he would come talk. So we thought about bringing him to a GRC. Well, he can't make Fridays. So I talked to Kelly, and there will be an email going out. It'll be Wednesday the 26th at 12 o'clock at the fire department. So same time, just on a Wednesday the 26th, he's gonna come talk to us about whatever questions we have about what they do, about what we're seeing, what we're reading in the news, where that is, what they're doing, all that stuff to hopefully make people feel a little more comfortable. But I want Tom's input on this because at our GRCs, we're limiting 2 council members. Because sometimes we talk about business things, and if you have a third one there, to me, it's a serial meeting. But in this case, if all council members wanna come, and then all but 2 leave after he talks, I would think that would be okay to keep it under the 3, correct? So they, okay. Thank you.
Are we done?
So yeah, so Kelly will send the email out and we're done. Well, we have another meeting.
Successor agency,
Yeah.
don't we?
Okay, Kelly, do you have anything you wanna bring up? Okay,
No events coming up, Kelly?
thank goodness, huh? Okay, I'm gonna close this meeting. I'm gonna open up the, successor agency.
So moved.
I need approval of the minutes first.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion from
Second.
Dan. We have a motion from Dan, who has a second? No, she wants a roll call.
Oh,
Okay.
Gary seconded it.
Are you calling roll, or we just say aye?
Yep,
Yes.
yes.
we're all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, approval of the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Motion,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5-0.
What do we need all this for? We got you. Who approved the
Gary.
minutes?
We would have just violated our
Just put a name down,
councilman
nobody's gonna argue.
handbook.
Oh, that's right. Or what?
Yeah, I know.
Rules?